So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to lecture number 7 of Science and Technology in this lecture series called Prelims Powerplay 2026. Now, you all know that we are continuing with Science and Technology. In this lecture series, we cover all current affairs as well as static portions. And we are with Science and Technology. So all current affairs and static concepts related to Science and Technology would be covered in this lecture series. Okay, this particular phase of lecture series, Prelims Powerplay. Now, up till now, we have covered biotechnology, we have covered defense technology, and now we are going to begin with health, okay, human health, because it is also part of your science and technology syllabus, right? And in today's lecture, our today's topic of discussion would be superbugs. Now, superbugs are those microbes, bacteria, viruses, fungi, those microbes which are resistant to antimicrobials. So basically, what happened was that earlier, like 100 or 150 years ago, well, whenever you had bacterial infection, there was no cure for it. But after the discovery of antibiotics, after the discovery of penicillin, well, we got a cure for bacterial infection. So antibiotics basically fight against bacteria, right? And after that, medical science was revolutionized, okay? Because now, normal minor infection cannot take your life because now you can cure it with antibiotics. Similarly, for viruses, there were antivirals. For fungi, there were antifungals. And for parasites, there were antiparasitics. Okay. Now, the thing is that after so much use of these antibiotics, antimicrobials, well, these microbes have evolved to resist these medicines. There are certain bacterial strains on which antibiotics don't work at all. And bacteria are improving simultaneously. Okay. So you are applying antibiotics now, but after a few years, those bacterial strains would become resistant to those antibiotics. Then what will you do? You'll apply a stronger antibiotic. Then they will become resistant to that as well. Then you'll apply a stronger. And so on and so forth until you apply last line of antibiotics. And once these bacteria become immune to these last line of antibiotics, well, then we are back to the dark ages of medicine, where a normal bacterial infection can also take your life, right? Now, such categories of bugs, such categories of microbes like bacteria, viruses, well, these are called superbugs. Superbugs are those microbes which have become resistant, immune to antimicrobials. Okay, so we are going to talk about superbugs today. It is also known as antimicrobial resistance, AMR. And India is, well, basically kind of the capital of this particular form of superbug. Okay, there are so many cases of superbug infections in India. India is really a problem area as far as this is concerned. So this topic becomes important for us. Okay, so we will talk about superbugs. What are superbugs? How do they become superbugs? And what are the reasons behind this? And what innovations and solutions has India come up with to solve this problem? Okay, so we will talk about this topic in its entirety. So let's quickly begin this. Okay, all right. So Science and Technology lecture number 7 and superbugs and AMR. AMR stands for antimicrobial resistance. Okay. So in this topic, there are going to be a few subtopics. So let's take a look at those subtopics. So subtopic number 1 is what are superbugs? Then we'll talk about reasons behind their rise. Then we'll talk about the way forward. What should humanity do to solve this menace? Basically, we won't talk about this much. It would be given in your notes. So you have to take a look at this topic, subtopic from there. And last, we'll talk about important things from current affairs, because this year India came out with new categories of antibiotics which work on these superbugs. Okay, this is important development from India's perspective, India's science and technology perspective, and they become very important for our prelims examination. So this would be the last topic. Okay, so let's start with topic number 1, and that is subtopic number 1, and that is what are superbugs? Okay. Now, the thing is that, well, superbugs, like I discussed this with you, that superbugs are those bugs which are resistant to antimicrobials. Okay. Now, antimicrobials are those medicines that work on microbes. So, examples of microbes: bacteria, virus, fungi, and many others, right? So, antimicrobial for bacteria is antibiotic. For viruses, it is antivirals. And for fungi, it is antifungals. Right? So these are microbes. And to kill these microbes, there are antimicrobials like antibiotics, antivirals, and antifungals. So when a particular microbe becomes resistant to antimicrobials, that is known as antimicrobial resistance, AMR. The name of the problem is AMR. And these microbes are called superbugs, like Superman. Superman is man of steel. A bullet doesn't kill Superman. Similarly, antibiotics don't work on these superbugs. Okay? Now, let's delve a little deeper into this topic. Okay? So superbugs are multi-drug resistant bacteria, fungi, viruses, parasites that evade standard antibiotics or antimicrobials, turning treatable infection into life-threatening ones. Okay? They develop resistance through mechanisms like enzyme production, altered cell targets, restricted entry points, or efflux pumps that expel medication. So what happens? Okay, hear me out carefully. You see, when you have a bacterial infection, you are given antibiotics and you get cured. Now, when you get cured, well, that particular antibiotic kills 99% of the bacteria, but still 1% is left. This 1% basically evolved to repel this antibiotic. Maybe it produces a particular kind of enzyme. Its DNA is such that it produces a particular kind of enzyme that protects it against antibiotic enzyme production. Altered cell targets, it doesn't work on this bacterial cell. Restricted entry, the antibiotic doesn't enter the bacteria. So there are various mechanisms that are programmed into the DNA of this 1% bacteria. That is why it got saved. Okay? And now this 1% surviving bacteria will produce more and more bacteria. And this more and more bacteria that is reproduced would be that which is resistant to antibiotics. You're understanding the point? This 1% bacteria will transfer its genes to its offspring. Those offspring would also produce similar enzyme. So they would become resistant to antibiotics. Now, this bacteria would be given a higher, more powerful antibiotic. Then it will become resistant to that as well, and so on and so forth. That's how they evolve. They evolve like evolution in Charles Darwin. Okay? Bacteria share resistance genes horizontally, accelerating spread. Now remember, I just told you that this 1% who will survive will transfer their genes to their offspring. But bacteria has some special power. They not only transfer genes to their offspring, they transfer genes to their friends also. Okay, other bacteria also. Bacteria can transfer genes horizontally also. Vertical transfer is like in humans. We inherit our parents' genes, but bacteria can transmit it to their friends as well. This basically spreads this antibacterial resistance or antibiotic resistance. Okay, remember this, horizontal gene transfer. We'll talk about this. While survivors reproduce dominant resistance strains. Okay, now the reason why antibiotic resistance is rising is because in India, we use a lot of antibiotics. And most of the times, you must have heard about this. Most of the times, you're given antibiotics. The antibiotics are given to you for 5 days. Okay, if you have a disease. After 3 days, you start to feel better. You discontinue with those antibiotics. When you discontinue, well, instead of 1%, now 5% bacteria is left. So more antibiotic resistance would develop. So we are not completing our course properly, medicine course. Sometimes we have viral infection, but we still take antibiotics. We have viral infections. We should take antivirals. We take antibiotics because we don't consult our doctor. We generally go to a medical store, tell them that we are having cough, give me some medicine. They give you antibiotics and you're using those antibiotics. Now, some other categories of bacteria in you, they will become resistant. Misuse of antibiotics has caused this superbug problem. That's the long story cut short. Okay? Now, first, let's talk about horizontal transfer of genes. You need to know about this concept. Otherwise, well, because an MCQ can be asked. Okay? So, horizontal gene transfer is the movement of genetic material between organisms that aren't parent or offspring, allowing genes to jump across species. And this happens commonly in bacteria. That is why antimicrobial resistance is rising. Okay? Now, there is another category of superbugs called hospital-acquired superbugs. Now, what are they? Well, you went to a hospital to get treated, but in those hospitals, there are bacterial strains that are resistant to antibiotics, and you get infected by them. So you went to the hospital to get cured, but you came back with another disease that on which antibiotics don't work. These are called hospital acquired infections. And this happens because, well, high antibiotic use and poor sanitation conditions in certain government hospitals of India. This is very big factor. India has one of the world's highest burdens of antibiotic resistant infections, leading to significant mortality, especially among infants. Okay, so this is all you need to know as far as superbugs are concerned. Just remember horizontal gene transfer. It's important and MCQ can be asked. So remember this. Okay, so let me just stop this lecture for a few seconds because I want to share something really important. Look, along with this lecture series, you will also get notes, exhaustive notes, which you have to memorize. Then you will be enrolled in our WhatsApp groups where you can ask all your doubts, even the simplest of queries. And along with this lecture series, you will also be getting a test series, an exhaustive list of tests tailor-made for your UPSC Prelims 2026 examination. To register, to get access to notes, WhatsApp groups, and tests, you would have to register on our app or on our website. The links to both app and website are given in the comment section below. You just have to click on the link and it will take you to our registration page. So register for Prelims Powerplay 2026 because you have no idea how beneficial this lecture series is and you'll just be spending 1 hour of your day. So join now, click on the links given in the comment section below. Now let's talk about the reasons behind this phenomena. Okay, why is superbug problem rising in the world? Now there are various reasons behind this phenomena, okay, and we have categorized them into different categories. Number one category is inappropriate antibiotic use. I gave you a few examples just a while back, right? We are overusing and not using antibiotics properly, and that is why bacterial strains are getting evolved. Number one problem is overprescription. Okay, you do not use doctor's prescription most of the times, and sometimes doctors themselves prescribe antibiotics unnecessarily. Overuse of antibiotics has caused this problem. Okay, then prescription. Many people in various regions buy antibiotics without a prescription, leading to taking wrong or incorrect dosage. This is a problem. Then many people do not complete full course of antibiotics. Remember, I told you that in 3 days you start to feel better, you don't take antibiotics. This is another problem. And many people take antibiotics for preventive reasons rather than curative reasons. For example, you get to know that bacterial infection is spreading. Okay, your friend got bacterial infection, your relatives got bacterial infection, and you thought maybe you'll also get bacterial infection. So you started taking antibiotics beforehand for preventive reasons rather than curative. This is known as prophylactic use. This is also a category of misuse. Okay, so inappropriate antibiotic usage. The next problem is overuse of antibiotics in agriculture because many farmers, dairy farmers, poultry farmers give antibiotics to their animals. Okay, because a diseased animal won't be productive. So they are given antibiotics. And these animals also host a lot of bacteria. Those bacteria become resistant and then they get transmitted to humans, causing diseases. Yes? So extensive agricultural use. A large proportion of antibiotics produced worldwide is used in livestock and fish farming, not just to treat disease. Okay, this is a problem. And in animals, you use it for prophylactic purposes. Okay, improper waste disposal. Inadequate disposal of antibiotics from hospitals and pharmaceutical industries into sewage system. And sewage also has a lot of bacteria where these antibiotics work on them and then they become resistant. So this is a problem. Then third is healthcare. Hospitals have poor sanitation. Then some people are immunocompromised. Their immune system is not working properly. So that is a reason. And some resistant bacteria. Let's suppose a bacteria became resistant in Portugal. Then someone from Portugal traveled to India and that bacteria started spreading in India. Because the world has become small, these diseases can spread to the entire world, like COVID, right? So this is the reason. And last, lack of new solutions. Okay, slow drug development. We are very slow when it comes to developing new antibiotics, which are more powerful and will work on these resistant superbugs. Okay, though India has made a breakthrough in this area. And lack of awareness also. People are not aware that you shouldn't consume antibiotics without consulting your doctor. People are not aware that you shouldn't overuse antibiotics or underuse them. Always consult your doctor. So lack of public awareness is also exasperating this challenge. Clear? Now, these are the set of problems that you should be aware of. Okay, these are the set of reasons which are causing the rise of superbugs. Now, what is the way forward for this? It is given in your notes, very easy to understand, so we won't spend that much time on it. We'll quickly jump to India's initiatives. Okay, now in this year, this is part of your current affairs. This year in 2025, India developed two medicines, two antibiotics, which are 8 to 10 times more powerful than last line of drugs also. And they work on drug-resistant bacteria. The name of the two medicines are nifetromycin, okay, and imatazobactam. Imatazobactam, okay. I might be ruining the pronunciation, but who cares, okay. Nifetromycin, if you remember the spellings, that works for you for your exams. And this. Now, the details about these two medicines, some few points, who produced it, which private company produced it, against which disease. For example, nifetromycin works against pneumonia. Okay, so what diseases, against which disease it works, which company produced it, all of this is given in your notes. So just go through and remember that trivia. And that would be all. Today's topic was not that long, so we won't be spending that much time on it, but your notes are nonetheless important. So do memorize those notes. Okay, and that would be all from my side, guys. With that, I conclude today's lecture. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. I'm sure about it. Just be consistent and regular, and do not forget to memorize the notes, ask your doubts in the WhatsApp groups, and give the tests on time. On that note, I'll be signing off with the promise of seeing you again with another topic in this lecture series called Prelims Powerplay. Thank you, everyone.